Hello good people, I'm Dmitry. I'm going after the tropical look because I am expecting to be refreshed with the airflow from this thing. This is the Lian O11 Air Mini, and it's a totally different enclosure from the previous Mini, the O11 Dynamic Mini. The promise, we are told, is to give us the same compact ATX experience, but with airflow performance similar to that of the Lanco 2 Mesh. And that, my friend, is very exciting, especially because the price is supposed to be $99 and $109, which is very competitive IMO, plus the interior is exactly the type of stuff I'd like to work with when it comes to my simple airflow configuration, where the hardware occupies most of the space while not feeling cramped. So I'm going to break up this review in 3 parts. We'll talk about the things I like, things I don't like, and obviously things to keep note of because there are plenty of quirks when it comes to the O11 Air Mini. So let's begin. Right after this. Ooh, a 30mm frame, so it's a little thicker, ideal for multiple locations, but is the performance mind-blowing? Exactly. Introducing the new T30 fans from Fantex, the ultimate fan for radiators, heat sinks, and cases, where you need powerful airflow with an excellent sound profile. The 3 RPM mode switch is a clever integration, you gotta appreciate daisy chain potential, and of course, a good looking fan will keep the system clean. Check out the T30 fan down below. Alright, so welcome back. Let's start with the things that I like. The form factor. So for simple ATX enclosure, it's only as tall as my Corsair 1 and slightly wider than your usual mid-tower. They have now modified that second chamber at the back to support a full-size ATX power supply, which is fantastic, and that is an upgrade over the previous O11 Dynamic Mini, which could only support an SFX unit. As for the CPU tower and GPU tower clearances, they are adequate enough for 2021. I like the exterior panel installation where you remove the top panel first, then pop off the side or the front, and they all sit on these pegs, plus these silver thumb screws at the back, tying with the white model nicely. The I/O is pretty standard for 2021. I do like the 3 included fans, so 2 140s at the front and a 120 at the back for ready to go cooling. And this is a big upgrade over the Dynamic Mini, which came with no fans at all. And so here you have 3. I mean, it makes sense for a case to include fans when the Air is in the name. The front fans sit on these removable brackets, which are super easy to work with and can be removed completely for a really long GPU or to clear up some space if you're mounting really thick radiators on the side. I also like the consistency of the ventilation pattern. I know it's a minor thing, but it makes the case feel cohesive, while the metal mesh on the exterior acts as a dust filter as well because of those tiny holes. Plus the removable fine dust filter at the bottom is appreciated if you're mounting fans there for intake. So overall, the cooling potential with the O11 Air Mini is great for this size. Just be mindful these radiator spaces overlap, so if you're doing a 240 at the bottom and up top, you'll eat into your space for the front radiator, or if you have anything thick at the front, the side mount becomes less convenient to access. But it is really cool to have your standard options available, plus that side mount, which does not interfere with your motherboard, does not interfere with your cables, so if you are mounting a set of fans on the radiator there, it's just an additional value add for cooling if you want to populate literally everything in the case. Also, in the standard 7-slot ATX configuration, mounting a radiator up top is going to be super challenging because it's going to bump into any of your components, and so that's why Lian will sell these optional brackets, which is kind of unfortunate why they're optional, which will allow you to offset the radiator even closer to the side panel, giving you a bit more clearance for your components. And so you will need to get these if you're going for the full-size ATX stuff. If you are going for the micro ATX motherboard stuff where everything's slightly lower, obviously you're gonna get a lot more clearance up top for radiators and you won't need these. Which brings us to that whole modular back section where you can convert the layout from a 7-slot to a 5-slot case, so for slightly smaller micro ATX and ITX motherboards, giving you additional height clearance. The main difference here between the previous Mini is that we no longer have the 3-slot layout option, it's only 5 or 7. All of your storage will be located at the back with this middle spine for 2 SSDs, and that conveniently hides all your cables. The ventilated cage with 2 drive caddies is right above the power supply, and 2 more large drive caddies are located on the side mount if you need them. Now moving to the second part of this review of the things that I don't like. So this could be an isolated incident with just my sample, but I have some discoloration happening on the corners of my both front and top panels. It seems like they're kind of dirty, but from something red. At first I thought it was rust, but it could be some painting issue. Next are the PCI screws that were over tightened, causing the paint to strip as I removed the screws. The blue power button LED flashes purple for hard drive activity. I don't like this color at all. The large rubber grommets are easy to work with, but are pretty loose, so you will need to align them back in place after routing cables. But the main thing here is the airflow is indeed mini. So check this out. The promise of this matching the LAN Cool 2 mesh performance is pretty misleading, as the front panel is more solid than mesh, so that is the reason behind 7-degree difference of stock versus your front panel removed. When we look at GPU cooling, it's not fantastic but not terrible either, but overall the air in the name is pretty disappointing, especially because the included fans are high quality but the metal mesh isn't. Now, a few things to keep in mind, so let's mention some of the quirks about this case. You cannot use the thumb screws on the left side of the power supply mount because of the side panel. It simply will not close. When reinstalling the back panel, make sure all pegs are properly inserted, otherwise it'll bulge, and I find installing it at an angle like this is much easier to get them all aligned. You can mount the side 120mm fans behind the frame, but in doing so, you will introduce a lot more noise because the fan is basically right against that side panel, and if you are exhausting air, it will sound quite turbulent. I also repositioned the two front fans at the bottom for intake, hoping that we will get better airflow, but instead I got worse temperatures on the GPU, which is surprising. That means that there's some hot air recirculating back into the case, and so that's not an option. So that means that the front panel here just has to change, or you're not looking for like a super high performance in this form factor. And so in the end of the day, the O11 Air Mini structure-wise, I feel like is a much better upgrade versus the previous O11 Dynamic Mini, basically giving you lots of flexibility for standard ATX components and super easy cable management because of that cable bar and just route things all around the motherboard. No issues whatsoever. But there's definitely something wrong with that front panel because it blocks so much airflow. Even when I put it against my face and try to blow through it, I don't feel anything coming out. And so their whole dust-proof approach here definitely backfired. I think I would have much preferred like bigger holes here and an included dust filter. I think that might have worked better. So if you are after pure performance with the airflow and this form factor, this ain't it, my friend. But it is definitely better in terms of layout and internal design versus the previous O11 Dynamic Mini, despite not having a front glass panel, but it might as well just have it. All right, guys, let me know what you think of the O11 Air Mini. So disappointed that the airflow isn't to what we were promised, especially when you're comparing it to the LAN Cool 2 mesh, which is one of the best in my entire cooling stack. So come on, Lian Lee, what you doing? But check out this other relevant content, subscribe for more. I'll talk to you in the next video.